Welcome to the show. My name's Steven. This is Michael O'Brien. Michael, tell the viewers a little bit about what you do, man.
We are a full service construction company based in Denver, Colorado. We focus in mitigation, roofing, restoration, and remodels mainly. But do a lot of any top to bottom construction. But mainly focus on working with insurance companies. And we go after a lot of water loss, a lot of roofing jobs, and then from there word of mouth and remodels, stuff like that is happening. And actually I just got a call this morning um from I haven't gotten a lot of internet leads, but I started doing some more marketing SEO stuff, and I haven't had much luck, but maybe the tides are turning. We'll see.
Okay. So what got you into business, right? What started your
I've
company?
been doing construction in, various forms for since I was a kid. I guess I grew up in Chicago. And when I was about 16, I got a job with a company called Rainbow Play Systems, and we started staining swing sets. Soon thereafter, people had asked me if I could stain decks, and then it became to, can you build decks? And so, it kind of grew from there. And now what, 25 years later, here we are. Um, I've had various construction companies, from companies that, say we're more focused on like landscaping, irrigation, growing food, to more like hardscapes, concrete, pavers, patios, walkways, more employee intensive, really backbreaking work, to more, hands off kind of running crews. But I still like getting my hands dirty. And I was in the mall at Park Meadows last night, in Cherry Creek the night before, doing some work for a company that we work with, ALO. Um, we do some work, just refresh painting and kind of touch ups in the stores. Um, and that's actually, yeah, going to be sending me to Canada here next week, because they have some stores out there we're going to be working with too. So,
Wow, okay, that's pretty interesting, man. Have you ever gone to Canada for work before, or this is like a first time thing?
yes, I have three
Okay.
decks. Yep.
So I like how you were telling me about how you started and how you've been doing this for the last 25 years. What was the what was the thing that drew you to construction? Was it just particularly a job, or did you have some sort of want to go into building? Is there like some passion for it that you can?
Honestly, I just, never could work for anyone else, if I'm being real.
Okay.
And, soon found out from a young age that I could make a pretty good living working for myself. And that was kind of the beginning of the end, for me. Because I just think, it's one of those things where, I love my time, and I value my, my recreation, and being able to have that freedom. And having a 9 to 5, or having someone, telling me when and where I have to work, just never really worked for me. So, I found out from a young age that I could make good money doing, work, that people needed, so at the end of the day, it wasn't much of a decision. I don't think it just kind of fell in my lap in a way.
Mm. I feel like that's something that most entrepreneurs struggle with. Like that's something I had an issue with too when I first started out was I didn't want to work for someone else. And
Mm-hmm.
so going into my own thing helped me get away from that and being able to use my time the way I wanted to. What kind of like I've noticed a big impact on my personal life. I have time to, obviously it seems like you work more, right? You work more hours than the average person does, but the time that you do get off is time well spent. What has what is that having your own time, having your own schedule done in your life personally?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about, really. I mean, I don't. say work to live, right? It's like, I kind of live, you know what I mean, to work in one sense. Right now, there's been parts of my life I think that it was the other way around. And I'm okay with that, right? Like, and I'm hungry, I'm motivated, and I've been doing this long enough and know kind of I see the pathway, if you will. And there are, kind of metrics in place and, certain things. I just bought about 50K mitigation equipment last year after a big roofing year because I saw the kind of money I was paying out when I was doing some adjusting for after hurricanes and stuff. I'm like, man, these guys are making a lot of money setting up fans and dehumidifiers, just doing some demo work and stuff I thought was relatively easy, right? So, having say move more of my business into that and focused on like trying to get those types of jobs where like I know what I'm gonna make. If those machines are running every day, I know what I'm gonna make, right? And they're never late and they never call in sick. And so if I can, I have the right tools now in place to say be successful. I just need to go out and utilize and make those tools work. And that may be a guy, that may be a machine, that may be a type of equipment, a type of contract, right? And so I've kind of developed that, but I think I'm also trying to hand over the reins and to, give more, people a shot and project managers and bring on other people to, technicians, educate them, pay for their education, to get some of these certifications through like the ICRC, and just becoming like, giving some more one time with these guys so they can kind of grow their careers as well and hopefully grow my business in turn, right? So I think that, I mean, yeah, I mean, I love getting out. I mean, I live in Colorado, so being in the mountains, going to getting on the rivers, playing in the mountains, going to ski. Um, big reason, and I like doing that all over, right? So there's great mountains and great rivers all over, and I got great friends kind of all throughout the country, and so it's fun to travel, right? Um, and yeah, I don't think if I can't imagine a lot of career paths in which I'd be able to have the freedom that I do. Um, and at the same time, there's work to be done all over the U.S. and Canada and Mexico and so I think that yeah, there's a lot of opportunities out there when it comes to my skill set being able to utilize it wherever, right? I'm still getting calls, after hurricane. We've had a busy hurricane season already, but there's some of these adjusting companies, right? And there's always these little storms happening. It could be a winter storm, it could be a wildfire, it could be a wind event, a hailstorm, and they can be localized or they can be widespread. I was working as an adjuster after Hurricane Ian. I mean, you see the destruction after that; it's just massive. I mean, and there just aren't enough like skilled laborers, like knowledge really anywhere for something of that size or nature, right? So there's opportunities, say for a guy like myself with equipment who's willing to travel or, you know, and I'm trying to put together like teams that are willing to do that, right? And that's a whole different beast. I have not gotten there yet, but that's kind of where I'd like to go. And I've had people that have tried to talk me out of it, but at the same time, we'll see. I'm getting on board too as a TPA or working with TPAs. So that onboarding process is taking a bit of time and they require like each kind of say specific TPA, requires different certifications, licenses, certain types of insurance. So it's just kind of going through that. And it almost like I need to hire someone just to handle the workload and paperwork associated with these different TPAs.
Hmm. So
But yeah, that was kind of a lot. But yeah, man, it's all about, if I want to cut out and go fish today, it's, or we got a powder day. It's like, I can manage my company from my phone, from my computer, and I can kind of go and do that without having to, say, get any, slide other than my wife or, someone, giving me a hard time. It's really, pretty easy for me to do that. Right. So,
gotcha. So it seems to me, and maybe I didn't understand this before, but just based off what you said, it seems like you work all over the place. You don't just work in Denver, correct? So where do you work, or where are you trying to push your business into?
well, I do know I'm based in Denver. I guess, I'm trying to go work after a hurricane, mainly doing mitigation work, and roofing. And, Um, not they do restoration remodels, the full service on the road. But after these events, there's a giant need for a lot of these, this equipment essentially, like after a hurricane. So, we have dehumidifiers, HEPA filters, air movers, and air scrubbers, heaters, depending where you're at, in the country and what's required as far as, drying. A lot of different specialized equipment too that people just don't have, right? So as a company working through these TPAs, the insurance companies say, hey, we got 20 houses for you in Florida, can you do that? And then you start there and you go, okay, great, let's knock on the neighbors, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you try and get more work and more equipment and kind of you know go from there. So I got a giant spider here. Yes.
So I think earlier you had said you had a vision that you were going for. What is that vision? Like where are you trying to get to? Like, what do you see for your business for the next, 5 to 10 years?
Honestly, I need to grow not only the staff, the employees, but also the relationships throughout the industry, right? Like there's a lot of specific niches and referral sources that I necessarily wouldn't have thought of. That have been, rewarded. And just being in the business now, I mean, I've been in business like with 20 since 2018 with O'Brien Construction. Um, I had another company, Superior Hardscapes, before that, um, with a friend. And so this vision essentially is like, let's grow this thing. I kind of have the formula. I know how to write estimates really well and Xactimate, and which is a lot of the estimating software the insurance companies use, along with Symbility. Um, and so, given that skill set, given the fact that I'm comfortable talking to customers, very familiar with the process of, how to build, I also got a degree from the University of Montana and studied carpentry along with environmental science there, but was into, worked at a wood shop and always was into construction and building and art and sculpture, and so it's always kind of been a passion of mine. So I definitely have played with a lot of different materials and seeing a lot of things go down in remodels, right, and restoration and after hurricanes and wildfires, total remodels. And so I've been there and seen a lot of carnage, if you will, too. So when the siding gets ripped off and there's really nothing but studs, or so you get to know and realize and understand a lot of these different materials. I mean, I just took like a lead cert class a couple weeks ago, and just everything that's required by the EPA for that, in homes that I think it was 78 before 78. There's certain rules, regulations you have to abide by, giving the homeowner like a pamphlet on their rights and what we're going to do to help protect them and their kids. Essentially is the biggest thing. It's like kids under 6 really, there was a spike in lead poisoning and they're wondering why it was happening, and then realized it was from all these old homes. And pretty disturbing, some of this science and stuff that's out there on it, because it's in a lot of homes and I don't think people really realize uh the dangers of it, along with like asbestos and all these other great things. But um anyway, that's a whole different, rabbit hole. But yeah, I would just say that there's a lot of unique lead sources out there that take time to develop relationships, but say once they're developed and once you prove you're a good company and you show up and do what you say you're going to do and you're on time and you do good work, you get a call the next time, so that pays off after being in business for a few years, and then or 25 years, or kind of being in that same field for a long time. People kind of know to, oh, okay, this guy does this work, right? So, and then, the one of the more interesting things this year though is bringing on other people, right? I just hired my first 2 employees. It was mainly subs before that, so that was a transition, and there's a lot of trainings they needed if someone depending on their skill level or kind of knowledge base coming into this industry. There's a lot to it as well, and some people fit in at different facets. So I stay right tool, right job, right guy, right job, and you just got to get out there and keep getting more jobs and hopefully getting the right jobs. That's another piece is, some of these people out there are just tough to deal with, right? You know that from the get, and you should probably just walk away. And if when you're first starting out, you're probably not in a position to do that, but you probably should do it anyway. But I would recommend that to anybody out there who's just starting off. That if it looks like shit and smells like shit, and you don't like these people, like you should probably just say, you know what? Unless it's a really short job, you can get in and out of there. Like, probably not worth the headache.
Mm. Yeah, that's one thing I did want to talk about a little bit. Most of the audience that I have is a little bit newer entrepreneurs, younger guys. Uh, even I'd say to the extent where they're not even entrepreneurs, they're kind of trying to figure out what direction they want to go. They want to go into online business space or go into contracting. What kind of person do you think someone would have to be in order to run a roofing company?
You got to be tough. You got to be bilingual, and you got to be, knowledgeable on all things roofing and insurance.
Mm,
Definitely good start right there. And then, have good guys that know what they're doing. I mean, it's not rocket science, but roofs leak, and when roofs leaks, things cost a lot of money. And so
yeah.
have good insurance, be smart, use ice and water, even when you don't need to on valleys and eaves, and go overkill with ice and water. It'll save you money in the long haul. Um, and make sure, yeah, your local building codes. Each one of these cities, they make it about as stupid and complicated as they can in Colorado. Every 5 feet's a Duke County, and I got a new law and reg. And is this ice and water just under, code upgrades? Is this not? Is this, what do we got to do here? Is it, it's silly how, I need to get a certification in every county. I mean, what license requires that? It's just a money grab.
Yeah.
I got, $350 every county I got to go to and pay. It's thousands of dollars a year. You know what I mean? Just for the state or each county to get their little, piece. I get it. This is the world we live in, but it's, one of those things where no other, license requires like a county that I know of. I'm sure there are, but it just seems silly. It just seems like, yeah, there's a lot of hidden costs that people don't see, especially the homeowners, when it comes to the contracting business. And that's why I typically like to work for insurance and not homeowners. State Farm and USAA, you know what I mean? And when people see like 20% overhead and profit on a job, on a cash job, oh, wow, that's a lot of money. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's a lot of money to run a company too, and pay for all the licenses and insurance. I mean, I didn't even know what Bailey's insurance was till I had to get it. And it's a lot of, just in that. But we got general liability, pollution liability, workman's comp. I mean, there's all these costs that I don't think people see, and they're the tune of thousands of dollars a month. It's not like it's just oh, it's $10 here and $10 there. It's a lot of money. So it's there's a lot to this business. There's a lot to understanding it. But as far as the roofing, I mean, it's a great way to get into this business because there's a lot of margin there, and you need good roofers. So I would say that too, or you need to be a good roofer yourself or learn it.
Yeah.
But and then use your ABC supplies and your suppliers as much as you can, and try and roof load if you can for the guys. Don't break their backs or get one of those you know little chutes you can pull up, or the ladder vaders, or help your guys out where you can. But and yeah, use tarps everywhere all around your roofs. Start there. Cleanliness is godliness. Get the magnets over there. Get a guy just pretty much rolling with a magnet the whole time.
Yeah. I think from what I've experienced, from what I've seen, especially in the roofing niche, is that there's a lot of contractors who or a lot of roofing companies who start and it takes them 5 years, but they finally get there. And then there's like the new guys who don't really have any clients, don't really have any information on where to to get, leads or referrals or business. How did you overcome that at the beginning? Did you do a bunch of door knocking? Did you have word of mouth, friends and family? Like, what did you do to overcome your customer acquisition problem when you first started?
Yeah, I wasn't shy. And I wasn't afraid to knock on a door. And then once you get one, you're going to get the neighbors and they talk. And then you're going to get the other neighbors, right? So I kind of hyper localized. Like I would just focus on like one area. And I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna just knock out this area, and if they're not home, I'm gonna go there tomorrow, and I'm gonna go. You go for the biggest houses, and you go down from there, right? Like I'd
Yeah.
rather go after a 50 square house than some little double wide. You know what I mean? They ain't gonna pay me anything. So I knew that too. I know where the hail is, the biggest hail that causes the most damage. And there was an interesting storm out here in Central Park this year where it's very localized. I have a lot of friends in the area, but they were a mile or two apart. One roof totally fine, really very little damage. Two, the next one is like absolutely smoked. I'm talking skylights, photovoltaic systems, everything just hammered. So you gotta, drive around, don't be afraid. Like, like May 10th here in Colorado, like 10 days either day of that. Be alert, be ready, be on your phone. I mean, there's like hail trace, there's these different, groups that can give you information of exactly like where the storm was. And with AccuWeather, I mean, all the stuff we have now, there's a lot of good information out there as far as like where did hail get, how big was it, right? I mean, you're not really chasing anything after unless it's inch and three quarter. I wouldn't recommend like really going after it. They're not say they couldn't damage an inch and a half or something, but rarely, is it as big or damaging as some of the bigger stuff we get here as of late. And when it comes to hail, we also deal with wind. Those are the two big ones that a lot of people get in your roofs out here. So we get a lot of hail, we get a lot of wind.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, I drive through neighborhoods and I just look at roofs now, and I just, missing four shingles there. Like, that's, you just notice the stuff, right? You just start seeing stuff. You have gutters ripped off here. What's going on? You start seeing stuff in disrepair. You start looking at everyone's roof. I'll say that. Oh, what's this? That's a 30-year architectural. Oh, that looks like a Da Vinci tile, or that's and you start to know and see. I know the colors of these things too. You do so much of these things over time, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, and I can almost tell age. Not really. Once you get on a roof, you can tell how much granular loss there is. I mean, without the homeowner telling me, I can get a pretty good idea how old the roof is, and how many hailstorms, or maybe inch hail hit or 3/4 inch hail hit, and then you get a big storm, or um, and each carrier is different. I think that's what's interesting too on this. I just had one I thought was going to be bought, no problem. And we'll probably get it bought, but it's more the first guy came out there and it's a third party that takes photos. It's not actually an adjuster. And the next thing you know, oh, no, sorry, we're not paying for anything. I don't even think they covered like, even replacement of a few. I mean, there's some massive hits. Like it was a pretty steep roof, and I walked it and got some photos of it, and it was a pretty bright day, so I almost need to go there and get some better photos. But he missed the whole back section. I mean, like, kind of silly. So anyway, it's one of those things where don't always agree with the first assessment when like I know what a damaged roof is, right? Like I've been doing this long enough. And just because the first guy who took photos, he might not get good photos either, right? He might not have really shown them the damage, or if it's 10 hail hits you need per square on each elevation, like he might not have been looking in the right area, right? So you just want to maybe point them if you're, a contractor first starting out, know your stuff and make sure you're actually like, if you can be there for the adjuster meeting to point out, exactly where the damage is, do your assessment before, write your estimate before. And I like to say I make it as easy for them to say yes as possible. I pretty much hand them my estimate, email it over, give them the ESX file, give them the hover, you know, if they don't have it, and say, hey, here you go, man. Because some of these guys are independent and paying for it themselves. So if you can help them out there, it's like, hey, we're working on the same team here. We want the same thing for the client. Like, let's get this thing, rocking. When there's damage and it's going to be replaced, you're just like, okay, cool. We'll just point out this. Oh, this is, unique. we're gonna have to, this is a special like chimneys with like very specific aluminum that we're gonna have to figure out. They got rot, but it's like, where do I source this stuff, right? So there's some head scratching on some of these. You're like, okay, what kind of chimney flashing do I need here? Um, this brick chimney is like falling apart. Do we want to like do some tuck pointing before we reflash it? Stuff like that you're always going to run into on every job is going to be different. But and then each one of these things too, again, like know who's got a mid roof, who doesn't, right? Like I'll save you time too, and or headache because you're like, oh shoot, or leaving a roof open, you didn't know you had to do a mid roof, and the roof's already torn off, and so good to know this stuff, right? Like, and it's Friday, and they're not going to be able to out there Monday, and you got a storm overhead. So I've had it all. I've learned the hard way in a lot of this stuff. Wouldn't recommend doing it that way, but ice and water is can be your savior if you have an open roof. I'll say that.
So, my understanding, it looks like for a new person to um, generate jobs and to keep getting jobs, your recommendation is to start by, working with um, damage that you find, not be scared, right? Find these people, go out to their houses. Once you get one guy, they get the neighbors, and then making sure you do quality work. And you said, like you said, making it easy for the customer to say yes. Um,
The customer, the insurance company, yeah. I mean, sometimes the insurance company is the customer in a way. Because the homeowner ain't going to get their roof done if the insurance company doesn't pay for it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, and a lot of the work again I do is restoration. I'm not going after say cash jobs as much. Um, but just yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to go where the damage is. You know what I mean? Like I said, after Hurricane Ian, guess who's getting? There's a lot of roofs being done. You know what I mean? And there ain't that many roofers. I don't care. Even if there's a ton of descending, it's like there's plenty of work out there. You know what I mean? You need the right licenses and all that. But obviously, like if you're starting off, I guess my question would be, you know, um, you probably were a sales guy. You know what I mean? I hope at another roofing company or have some kind of background in knowing what you're doing here, right? Because there is definitely a learning curve, and there's opportunity to learn on other people's dime in this business. I don't know why you wouldn't. You know, I
So
I certainly did. 20 some years ago.
that was what I was going to ask if you, if that was.
Mhm.
How long did you work for another company for?
Couple months.
Okay,
Yeah,
interesting. So in your company right now, what would be your biggest pain point? Like, for the most part, and how we were talking about earlier, when you're generating your jobs and you're doing work for customers, on the early days it's rough, but as you scale, it continues to get, more. It still stays difficult, right? There's still a learning curve at every step of the way.
absolutely. No, every growth point has its pains, and right now it's organization for me. But I've since adopted a CRM software. I'm using Albi currently, but that's helped. In terms of communication, not only with my subs, but with my project managers and my technicians, and then it gives us a place where photos live. I mean, there's in the roofing business, there's company cam, right? Hover. That's what I use, say, for my ESX files, just to get dropped into Xactimate, and that's where I write my estimates. There's a lot of software out there that has allowed this work to be a lot easier. I mean, 20 years ago, there wasn't nearly the. I'm out there with a tape. You know what I mean? Out there on a 12-12 roof, like puckered up. I mean, there wasn't Google Earth. I can literally take measurements from my computer. Zillow. I mean, it's insane what we have. Right now. I mean, I could look at a house and tell you how much it's going to cost at this point. Some of these small houses, like, yeah, it's going to cost you around this much. You know what I mean? I can literally, yeah, I'll get you the measurements. I know how many squares, how much it costs per square, right? So it's, and I think the customers know that, right? Like you're going to sell yourself by educating yourself. So when you sound educated and you know what you're talking about, the customer's going to see that and they're going to want to go with you, right? So that's the other piece is that, your knowledge base will shine through when you're talking to these people and they'll, or it won't, you know what I mean? On the flip side, but at the same time, you don't need to know a lot to sell a roof. So, you know, and a lot of these people, they're buying you. And if they got, five Tom, Dick, and Harry roofers pounding on their door every day, why are they going to go after you? Right. So, what makes you different? What makes you unique? Why are they, and I always just say, we're here to, I like to make a friend out of this thing. And that's kind of one thing that is kind of unique about this business, I think, is that, I work with a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life and you run into people in different situations that maybe, they might not, after a hurricane or something, these people, are devastated, or a big wildfire, or even, a hailstorm. If it's busting windows and, coming through skylights and, flooding their house, it can be, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. You're like, oh, there's a lot of damage here. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to have to live in hotels or move out, or, it can be pretty traumatizing. So you're kind of like with these people at a point in their life where maybe they're like, in a tough spot. You can kind of help them out. Like, hey, we're going to be here for a couple of months, maybe, or this is going to take some time. Who do you want to work with? You know what I mean? Who do you want to? And you're vetting them in a way too on these bigger jobs.
Yeah.
So I said, be careful who you can walk away from jobs. It's okay. It'll save you headache and mental space to go after the jobs you want.
When have you walked away from a job and why?
I wish I'd walked away from more than than I have, say, but I think sometimes it's just not a good fit, man. You know what I mean? I mean, I know my subs, and a lot of them are, of Latino descent. And if you're walking in there with the guy with the, Confederate flag, it may ain't a good fit. You know what I mean? Like, or stuff, so you just kind of know, like, okay, I don't think it's going to be this is not going to work for us, So it's
Yeah.
okay. It's fun, but it's one of those things where I think you got to, at the same time, you want to go after all the work you can. You never want to say no to anything. I can work with anybody, right? But some people are you just know right out of the gate. You're like, this person's going to be a nightmare to work with just by talking to them, right? Like, you're a human being. You've been out there on the streets. There's people you want to talk to. There's people who don't want to talk to. I mean, the same goes with contracting. But at the end of the day, are you there doing a roof for a day or two and you can work with anybody? Or is it you're going to be a, 6-month remodel? You're going to be getting into these people's lives, and they're, people get cancer, people, you're going to be in these people's lives. You're going to get to know them, you know what I mean, over this time period. And even like I would say a roof, I mean, the insurance payout takes months, it's like you're communicating with these people. You want to make sure these people aren't dodgy. You're going to take the check and run, or, even if you do have a contract with them, you know what I mean? It's like you want to make sure that these people are going to pay you and that they have money to pay you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's another piece to the pie. There's a lot to it, obviously, but you know, it's like anything. I mean, you want to go after as much as you can, but you'd rather be working with some people than others, right? So try and steer towards that if you can.
So give me a story of one time when you just shouldn't have worked with, like, just a disaster situation. Maybe you shouldn't
Oh
have, maybe it's not that you shouldn't have worked with them, but just like what's a disaster situation and how'd you handle it?
wow. A disaster situation. I prefer like a loss. That I don't think there's been any real disaster situations with homeowners that like it wasn't resolved, or it couldn't, either one of us was like, we're okay, we can go separate ways. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, I wish the best on everybody. I want, we do good work, but at the same time, like, sometimes, like, we've made mistakes, and, we need to correct those mistakes, or, and we don't do it in a timeline or timely fashion for the homeowner. We've gotten the boot. You're like, oh man, like, but it's tough juggling a lot of jobs, and being everyone, everyone wants you to start yesterday, right? And wants you to do it for half the price. So that's what you're dealing with every single day as a contractor. So,
Yeah.
and you got to fight that, right? Like, that's, everybody wants to start yesterday and everybody wants to have the price. So, if I think you can set expectations, um, and get ahead of it, you can kind of avoid those pitfalls. But as far as the disaster situation, man, I'm trying to think. Disaster. I don't think we hadn't had any like big injuries or anything crazy. Thankfully, knock on wood here. Jesus. Uh, but I mean, yeah, I mean that one like a couple weeks ago, man, I was telling you where we just had this, we had shutting off the water, but it was in a condo unit in Cherry Creek where, I have my like moisture meter and infrared camera. I'm like, there's water everywhere. And it's this unreal, kind of bird's eye black wooden floor that you're like, this whole thing's gonna have to come up. And they had just completed this remodel. And I'm telling him all this information, and he's kind of relaying it to another guy. And, it's about like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm like, we got to pull this floor. And, we got a bunch of dehumidifiers in there. And we set up chambers and we set up fans. And, you know, the readings were not coming back any better. And you start to see the floors like buckle up and you're like, okay, and then, you start to worry about mold and stuff after, 24 hours. And you want to, if you know something's going to have to come out, it's better just to get it going, right? I don't think there's any point in trying to save it. But in this case, it was the homeowner was like not as out of state. It's a little late. It's getting later. They're like, I kind of hesitant to call them because of the, I mean, it's a big, conversation and you don't know, there's a lot of X factors, right? Like, does the drywaller have insurance? Who is this going to fall on my insurance? Is this, and we were just the mitigation contractor called out. This is another friend of mine who's a GC here, and he just kind of was like, hey, he came earlier in the day to get a HEPA filter for a job he was painting and just borrow for the week. And I was like, yeah, no worries, man. Just give me a job. If you got any mitigation jobs, just give us a shout. And not a few hours later, he gave me a call. And so it's one of those things they decided to pull it out, but they wanted to do it at like midnight. And I was like, listen, I had guys here all day. We can't do it. And they decided to go with another company. And, it was one of those things I hate to have lost such a big job. But at the end of the day, it's like, the liability with all the different, condos and the commercial properties, it was probably a better, a lot less headache. You know what I mean?
Well, also, on your side, it's like if that's what ended up being the case, you went in there and helped out where you could, and then that, it didn't end up working out. Like it probably was for the better anyway, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's
But
how
I
I
think
feel.
sometimes like, I lost it to like, Serve Pro or Service Master, one of those, chains. And I'm like, I have all the certifications, I have all the guys, we were ready to go, but I didn't say have the, big logo, the big trucks. I have a big trailer, right? But it's like I brought it in trucks because it's in Cherry Creek and it's like we're parking big trailers down there. So, it's little things like that. I mean, I roll up the next day. It looks like they just went to the prison yard and just got some homies and brought them over there. So, hey, you do you. But I'm just saying they ended up getting fired, I guess, too. But that's a separate story I don't know anything about. But it's just one of those things. I hate to say lose jobs because I don't have the name or I don't have the, maybe the logos on the side of the truck or the look or this, that, or the other. But the knowledge base is there. But I was, they didn't want to hear the knowledge that I was saying. And, like, yeah, sometimes you don't like the information I'm saying. Doesn't mean I'm not, correct. But they decided, yeah, they did need to tear it out. And it's the other company recommended that as well. But who knows, I mean, I also didn't have 15, a bunch of there's specific drying equipment for wood floors, you know, that, I don't think it would have made any difference because of the volume of water. But anyway, there's little things like that. They, other specialized equipment that it's nice to have partners too, right? Like I work with a company that if I need X amount of equipment, that they can help, you know, bring more equipment. So as you're growing, I would not be afraid to partner with other bigger companies. Even like if you're, going after commercial jobs and you don't do commercial, get a company that can do commercial. You never want to say sell a job you can sell and lose it. So there's ways to partner and ways to, grow that, and pass on other work, right? For referrals and things of that nature in this business that I think maybe that it doesn't have that kind of camaraderie in other businesses, or we do concrete. I know other contractors that just don't do concrete, right? Like, cool, give us a call. Like, happy to give you a 10%, whatever it is. It's like something like that, where I think, you can always be. don't look at it as competition as much as like, oh, how can we help each other, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So we are kind of getting close on time here. I do want to ask you the question from the last podcast. So for anyone that's watching and is unfamiliar, basically, I have a question from our last guest for Michael, and then Michael will give me a question for the next guest. So, our question from the last guest was, what obstacles have you faced in your business? What change did you put in place, and what were the results?
what obstacles?
Yeah, what obstacles have you faced in your business? Maybe it could be like current, something more recently. And then what did you change, and then what did you put in place?
It's a good question. Um, what obstacles did we run into? Well, there's always the cash flow, obstacle. Which I had one of my guys just call me like, "Hey, where's my money? It's Friday." And essentially, sometimes insurance companies specifically take time to pay, right? And on bigger jobs, I'm say dipping into my pocket, if you will, to pay for guys' salaries, guys' work, because at the end of the day, like they're getting paid that week or that the next week, right? Like a lot of the tradesmen they're not able to wait or I mean, nor should they really when they're done, right? And so I played the bank in a sense. So what have I done to curtail that? Well, doing remodels or mainly any insurance work, I try and get the either ACV check up front, right? Which for those who don't know, is the actual cash value. They pay out half up front, half up, when you're done, kind of thing. And so if we can get that check, they take depreciation off, they leave a portion of it back. If we can get that, that usually like, that's good enough for us to get going, get the project hopefully to completion, right? Depending on the size of it, sometimes there's progress payments, but um, but say even on cash jobs or on these insurance jobs, if they want to move quicker, we try and gather 30% of our estimate for the job to get going. So if it's just a minor, little floor, baseboard, drywall, paint texture, if we can get 30% down, say it's a $10,000 job, we'll take 3K, we'll get her going. I know it's going to be a week or so for the insurance, to send the check out. We already have the statement of loss. Like, okay, we'll get her going. We'll get it moving for you so we can get this done and wrapped up. And, on stuff that takes about a week or, anything over a week, it's maybe a different discussion, right? Um, so yeah, kind of having like rules in place like that, where I think, even initially a few years back, I was like, oh, cool, I got it, or like, we'll get it going. Like always let the client have some skin in the game, would
Yeah.
be that. So, and they act differently if they don't. I'll tell you that. I mean, even people, when they have insurance money as opposed to a cash job, when somebody's paying with their own money, it's different than, they even, yeah, they act differently, when it's say coming from State Farm. So, it's just good to, protect yourself, obviously use contracts, have lawyers review it, make sure that it has some teeth. Some guys say like they pre-lien everything and that's just like how they do business. On bigger jobs, it's not a bad idea, but it's just one of those things where, each state's a little different too in terms of how they view that. And at the end of the day, like, we don't have problems getting paid, you know.
Yeah.
We make sure that, that's very clear up front, or we don't do the work, right? I mean, there's got to be something there. That's why we're doing this. So,
Well, that's
but
good.
we put a lot on ourselves and say, hey, we try and set expectations and timelines and meet those. But things happen, scopes expand, right, of these work, and sometimes I don't think homeowners understand that either. But it's just the more you can be upfront and open with these people and set the table for them and kind of what to expect and actually meet those expectations, I think the better.
Yeah. Well, amen to that, man. I think that was pretty well said. After this is over, I want to gather your question for the next viewer. Where can people find you, man?
I got some socials. I got my website. o'brienconstruction.net. We're based right here at Denver and Sunnyside, but we work all over from Fort Collins down to Colorado Springs up into Summit. And then obviously, we got projects kind of all over with some different commercial partners we have and stuff. But no, we're here and hopefully, we're going to assemble the travel team here. I don't know if it'll happen this hurricane season, but I'm hoping next we'll have about 3 times as much equipment and can really, say go after and work after a hurricane and be ready to hit the ground running with a roofing team and a mitigation team. So, yeah, it was good chatting with you, man. I've never done anything like this. This is kind of interesting. And, obviously, being in this business a long time, I think there's a lot to it. And it's a rewarding, I like seeing the end product in some of our stuff, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we do big bathroom remodels and kitchen remodels. I mean, they look a lot better than they did from 1974, So, we can add a lot of value and add a lot of I mean, this is where you spend your time, right? This is where you live your life. So why not enjoy the space that you're living your life and so we can help make that more beautiful, more, more awesome place to be and for you to raise a family and, to enjoy your life in. So, if you're in Denver, give us a call in the area. We'd love to come out and chat with you and see how we can work together to make your house a little more amazing to live.
Well, I think that about does it, man. Nice work. I think that like Michael said, if you're in the Denver area and you're looking to check out his work, his links will be in the description so you can check that out. Michael, it was awesome talking to you, and I hope to
Hey,
see you
good
again.
talking to you too. Thanks so much.